Thank you to all of them. Now we are entering in the new platforms disrupting the fashion industry panel. We live in a time of constantly evolving ways in which to engage and reach new customers is not easy. What are the technologies and trends driving this change? What are the new platforms of today that consumers are engaging in? Where do the fashion houses lie? What are the next wave of technology to change the fashion industry? We have an extraordinary group of people that is going to speak about that. Please welcome Evan Schonbach, Justas Janauskas, Joe Freeman, and Eddie Mullen.
Thank you, Anna. My name's Evan. I'm with Mosaic Ventures. We're a Series A focused investor based in London, but investing throughout Europe, including in Spain. And I'm pleased to introduce this panel on new platforms in fashion, specifically as it relates to technology. It's particularly appropriate that we're hosting this panel here in Spain, given how formative Inditex Zara has been to fashion technology across the world, including sort of making the biggest advancements in a vertically integrated supply chain, in bringing fast fashion to the masses, and obviously producing the largest fashion business in the world today. So I'll introduce everyone briefly. So first, we have Justas Janauskas of Vinted, which is the largest peer-to-peer secondhand fashion marketplace in Europe. We have Eddie Mullen of Launchmetrics, which helps retail and fashion brands focus on their product launches and make sure those are as successful as possible. And finally, we have Joel Freeman, founder of Grabble, which is, the best way to describe it would be a Tinder for fashion, allowing you to swipe through different objects and then purchase them. So I'd like to maybe start about, if you guys can describe the products that your startups offer today and your vision for the startup. So what need were you really solving for, and what drove you to tackle that need?
Thanks, Evan. So actually, first time in a fashion discussion panel. Never thought gonna end up here until actually one day at one party where I met this one girl, and she said to me, "Hey, Justas, what about creating a platform where people like me, like women, ordinary girls, could trade their pre-loved fashion?" And I was, I'm a computer geek guy. I was like telling her, like, "Are you fucking kidding me with this idea? Is anybody going really to trade fashion with their friends?" And she said, yeah, actually, I'm doing this with my friends in my hometown, and now I moved to Vilnius, capital of Lithuania, where actually I'm based. And I don't have any friends to do that. I wouldn't mind this doing with any strangers if there would be a trustworthy platform to do that. I thought at the beginning it's a really crazy idea, but next morning I woke up and I thought, oh, it still makes a lot of sense. I called to my female friends and said, "Hey guys, what do you think about this platform, where you can list your, used clothing you have and you don't wear anymore, so that you can trade with your friends, girlfriends?" And to my surprise, everybody said, "Oh wow, this is a genius idea. How come nobody came up with this earlier? Like, you should guys do that." And then I called to Milda, my friend, and said, "Oh, people really respond well. Let's try to do that." So we sat down for 2 weeks. We coded first prototype. We launched that in Lithuania. We spammed our friends, and boom, it went viral. And people were literally starting listing their stuff and trading their stuff. And with no market, nothing, it just went really viral. And for example, like today in Lithuania, 30% of our target demographics, like female, they are monthly active users of the platform. So literally, if you go to street, one of the 3 girls, so they used Vinted in Lithuania in last 30 days. And it was incredible what kind of penetration we can reach. And that was like many years ago. And since then, all kind of crazy stories happened. Like, I couch surfed 2 girls from Germany in my apartment, and that's how we exported the idea to Germany, which is now the biggest market we are. Like 20% penetration over there. And then guys like Accel Partners, like very cool investors, reach out to us. I didn't know them. They said, "Oh, that's a very good idea what you have, guys. So let's what about like we invest some money and let's make this business international? And then this guy came later on he was working in one of the investment firms in New York, and then they invested 20 million euros, and we went to even more markets. That's how I ended up being a fashion expert today. Yes, so Vinted is available in 10 countries at the moment, including Spain. We're not very big here, but we'll see where it goes. Yeah, we have 13 million people using our app. We are still based in Vilnius, Lithuania. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Justas. Eddie?
Well, love this story because my story is a bit similar as well, and I think it's entrepreneurship. I have a very similar story where I've had, just to give you some of my background, I was born in Africa, moved to the UK, and now live in New York City. And what was amazing, when I moved to New York, I actually started I was hired by a company. I couldn't really work for a big company, so I started my own company. It was a computer repair company, so I was just going around fixing computers. Actually, one of the companies was a very big fashion PR production, KCD. I don't know if anyone's familiar with them. They do all the fashion shows in New York and also Paris. And I used to go there fixing their computers, and I did such a good job. They said, it's so good we have these samples in our wardrobes. Can you build a system to manage the samples? And believe me, I had no idea what a fashion show was or samples. And I said, yeah, I can do this because I'm a technology guy. I was building software when I was 12 years old. So very quickly, it took me about 2 weeks. I built this system to manage the samples. And that, grew. For me, it kind of realized I found the passion that, I was very passionate with software and technology. But instantly, I saw that there was a need in the fashion industry. And this started with samples. Then I realized that just sending a sample would take 40 minutes. I was able to use technology barcodes to do that in a couple of minutes. And there was the same thing with fashion shows. Fashion shows, it's a huge production. Send the invitations, the RSVPs, the checking in. It did the same thing. Before, it used to take like 50 people. And we computerized it so you can send electronic invitations, you can do the seating. We really streamlined that. And then I started to understand, I was almost like a child, just understanding the fashion industry and what was needed. And what was great was, as I started doing that, I saw there was a need for digital asset management. When you go to a show, there's images through the one-way, there need to be, there's a reason, you want to request the sample. So it ended up back to the sample tracking. But eventually, what I realized with all of this is there's a community for the fashion industry. So I ended up building a system called Fashion GPS Radar, which allowed the community to get access to New York, London, Milan, Paris, all the shows in one place. So you can RSVP, you can get the content. And this was around 2010. Then we partnered with Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. Now we power New York Fashion Week, also London, Milan, and Paris. And I'm just about to go to Dubai for their Fashion Week. So we built a system that is really helping brands. But ultimately, when I think back, the passion came is, I see how hard it is for a designer when you're launching a collection. There's so much you have to do. I think the best way to explain it is, it's like when I go and take a flight, I look at the cockpit and I just say, wow, there's like 1,000 buttons there. How does all this work? And that's what we do, and we become in the autopilot for the fashion industry. You press one button and we help you with all of these, the detail that it takes to launch a brand. And recently, last year, we merged with a company. Now we launch Metrics, and what they were doing was data. And I feel like in today's world, data is extremely important. So we made the fashion industry efficient, and what we're doing now is we're taking that data. So for example, if you're putting on a fashion show on an event or you're sending a sample, we're able to tell you ahead of time, what that means, monitor your show, and also post. So, that's where we are. And I think with the company, we are in 7 locations around the world, and this is great to be here, and thanks for having us.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Evan. As you mentioned, we have been called the Tinder of fashion, and I think that's the easiest way, potentially in 3 words, to explain what we did. And Grabble really started in about 2014, and everyone had a smartphone in their pocket with really good connectivity, but the experiences that people were having for discovering fashion were absolutely terrible. And our mission at the time was like, how do you make discovering fashion on your phone a really enjoyable experience? because everyone was on it for kind of leisure time. There were some quite good games, but the fashion experience just wasn't there. And at the same time, I was experimenting a little bit with Tinder, and I thought that was excellent, especially the design. And I thought this was something that we should definitely try, because it's a really great way to move through, I say, a number of products in Grabble. And we launched the app on a tiny budget, and it went absolutely viral on Twitter. And we got to number 7 in the App Store within a couple of days. And Apple noticed us and featured us as one of the best new apps in about 24 different countries. And that was an amazing start. So we had some proof and some validation that making shopping experiences great would be wonderful for us as a business. So since then, we've really matured, and we've taken the swiping format as just one of the offerings that we have within our app. And we started to add different types of formats to create content, and we're just about to launch a video format as well. And what we've learned along the way is it's incredibly difficult to build a really good mobile experience, and that a lot of retailers and brands are really struggling to keep up. And it's about creating a good mobile experience, but also being able to create really good content that can be distributed into the right places on mobile. So as we've matured as a business, we've built lots of really good technology that's been powering the Grabble app. And over the next couple of months, we're going to be rolling them out with a couple of retailer and brand partners to give them their own amazing experience for their consumers.
Thanks, Joel. And I guess I'd love to focus also on what are particular areas within fashion where technology can really have an impact. So what are the areas where startups can innovate and really thrive in the fashion world?
So in what we've seen, the biggest thing that you have is distribution. I mean, Facebook has over 1 billion daily active users. Instagram's got about 500 million users. And the amount of stories that you see where you have a fashion brand which has gone from down here to up here in a matter of days by having the right person taking a picture with it is absolutely incredible. And I don't think there's ever been a time in history when you've been able to launch a brand and get to a certain amount of revenue really, really quickly. And I'd say the other thing which comes up quite a lot because we speak to quite a lot of brands, probably not as many as Eddie, but taking advantage of the platforms that are out there already. So, for example, Shopify is an e-commerce platform, and you can get up and running with a shop probably in about 20 minutes for about $10 for the month. So I just think that combination of being able to get online and sell and the distribution so people know about your brand really quickly is absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, and Eustace, you have millions of users on your site, and all of whom have followers and post fashion, post trends. How do you think that relates with your business?
Yeah, so I see fashion is doesn't matter what kind of price tire it is. It's a luxury good because people, buy fashion not because of necessity, like you do buying airplane tickets, for example. You buy it mostly for inspirational reasons, because of very emotional reasons. So it's very similar to music in some sense. And I think technology enables also very well to create a very great discovery experience. This you can, kind of have a parallel with music discovery like Spotify, where you have different discovery ways of like by genre, by hashtags, maybe by mood, whatever you like. So your personalized recommendations. Every item on those millions of songs are unique. And the same goes for fashion. All those 26 million items we have on our catalog, so they are all unique, and technology can really help you to discover the styles, tastes, whatever you like, more appropriate to you, which could be a little bit harder if you would be doing that offline, just browsing through shops, a little bit more efficient. And I think this is exactly where we work and we excel.
Sure, yes. So it sounds like product discovery is certainly a main theme that you feel like startups can really innovate on, and obviously your startups have. And Eddie, your startup's obviously fairly different, where you're working directly with fashion brands and retailers.
Yeah.
I'd love to understand your perspective.
Yeah, I think for us is I really admire like Zara. It's incredible what they've done as a business because it's end to end, and really that's what we've been doing. Because when you are developing your concept, you have your samples, and you have version control, and then that goes into you then got to organize your event. You've got to know your community, you've got to know your media, your buyers. That's also critical. And all of this, there's a lot of detail that it takes to launch a product. And I think that this is a really key point for a brand, because even if you think of a sample itself, you have samples. This is something you're just about to launch into the market. it could be worth $10,000. And by not tracking it, and these are the products that we have, or even knowing who your audience is. So part of the data is if you're going to invite somebody, it's really good to understand how much have they done for you. And this is the data, and this is where we're using data to really help brands propel them.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like the trend throughout those three answers is really brands' communication with consumers and enabling them to have a touch point. I guess, what innovative ways are you seeing brands communicating with customers? Is it through, obviously, we spoke about social media. Is there also, are there other types of media and other interaction points?
Well, I think one of the big things is obviously video. Facebook have doubled down on Facebook Live. Obviously, Snapchat, Instagram have gone to Instagram stories. So videos is an incredibly interactive way to show your offering and really connect better with consumers. And that's an incredibly new thing. And obviously, it creates a whole load of dependencies because all of a sudden, a lot of the brands and retailers now need the video to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. But that's obviously one of the biggest trends at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And you saw, I think on Vinted, really messaging is more of a medium for communication between different consumers and different users. Are you seeing that with brands as well?
Yes, definitely. Like messaging, I think is a really huge thing. Even if you look at the young generation, millennials or Generation Z, which is the future of our society and how they interact, how they behave, it's totally different to people like us. Video is a super hot thing, so those guys are largest video consumers in the history of human beings. We launch video, for example, at Vinted, and we see how nicely it works. Texting, people really like texting. They connect with brands and with their friends basically through messaging. It's kind of natural way how you communicate with people. It's not just offline, face-to-face communication. Even when people sit with their friends, they are with other friends. Myself, I receive so many requests from customers of Vinted to my personal account. So I truly believe that chatting is really important and is going to grow very much in the future.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. I mean, fashion is a naturally social experience. It's about how you perceive yourself, how others perceive you. It's about interacting with others and their fashion tastes and choices. And so, yes, certainly video and messaging and more interactive types of media make a lot of sense. And I mean, we're seeing, certainly in video, we're seeing a ton of innovation, as you mentioned. I guess I'd love to perhaps dig in a little bit deeper there and hear more about the types of technologies you've seen being used and the way brands have been using videos and tech companies as well.
Yeah, it's a real big change. I mean, even for us, we wanted to start using video within our platform. So we designed it, it looked great, we built it, we had a demo, we were really excited about it, and then all of a sudden you need video, and that's obviously the biggest issue. So if you think a lot about the way that some of the larger brands have worked in the past, they've worked with a creative agency, the lead time might be 6 months to create something that's TV worthy, and it's an ad, it costs a lot of money, it needs a lot of sign-off, and then all of a sudden you need a brand that needs to create a 6-second bit of video for the Instagram story, or it needs something quickly for Snapchat, or potentially it needs something for Facebook for an advert, which might be a slightly different format to what you'd have on TV. And then all of a sudden you have this massive need for video, and it's done in a different way, because it has to be signed off as a good post-production piece, but it has to be done quick enough to get to market. So you're seeing the rise of, I don't know if anyone's seen this, but the platforms that allow contributors to make video. So a brand might go and say, all right, well, we want 50 contributors to make video along these themes, and we'll pick the best 3. And these platforms are growing really quickly, and I think they're struggling to keep up with demand. And I just think it's a completely different way that we're using video. And as I was saying, then actually you do need that video, and it does take a bit of time, but it does make it a lot more democratic. In the past, you needed a massive budget to make a really good piece of video that could go viral, that could be really engaging. But now, just with your smartphone, you can make something really, really interesting. So as a small brand, it gives you that opportunity with distribution. You could actually, just film your friend wearing something that you've made, and it could go viral quite quickly. So it kind of plays into this kind of distribution. For a big brand, it's a bit of a headache, but for a small brand, it is a big opportunity.
Yeah, and speaking of user-created video, how many people in this room have seen some of the fashion shows from the past few weeks on Snapchat in the form of the Snapchat stories? Yeah, it seems like a pretty good portion of the group. It's certainly been a way that I would never know when the different fashion shows were, but I know that the Paris fashion show finished yesterday. I think Dubai starts in a couple of days. It's brought some of the fashion world towards the mass market because it's It's really making this world of elite fashion a lot more relatable with the user-generated video you're seeing on things like
Yeah,
Snapchat.
I was going to say this. So it does add a layer of complexity because now you then have to be able to distribute different types of content to lots of different touch points. So before you might have just had your website, and then you might be able to get some traffic from Google or from Facebook. But now you need to think about 6 or 7 different types of platforms like Pinterest, potentially Tumblr if people are still interested, and obviously Snapchat, Instagram Stories, and you want to get the right types of content for Facebook as well. So all of a sudden, you need everything to be connected to make sure that you're not doing the work multiple times. So I think that is then becoming a bit of an issue. And obviously, one of the changes is going to be, in the future, you'll probably want to sell your products through some of those platforms as well. So it's how you can connect your e-commerce business for the future to the content that you're going to make.
And we've spoken a lot about sort of the newer forms of video. We haven't spoken about the dominant form of video, which is still television. How do you feel television and the way brands and fashion has been presented through television sort of relates to the newer wave of online video and mobile video?
I have some experience with with television. At Vinted, we experiment with different marketing channels, digital mostly, but recently we experiment with television, and to my surprise was one of the most effective way how we spend euros into marketing. And why is that? Because in contrast to other industries like travel or tickets, where it's, as I said, it's more goods, like commodities, so those industries 100% shifted to online, and they are not present offline anymore. You don't go to ticket office to buy your airplane tickets anymore. But fashion is very much still offline. Large part is over there. And it's not fully moved to online. And I think the reason for this is, as I said, fashion is very much about the experience, full kind of experience. And with all those digital products you have, iPhones or internet screens, whatever, they are not able to convey you kind of full experience. They are still in very small screen. It's not the experience you would get when you enter the boutique shops where they can really build a great experience. And why television really works well, because in contrast to YouTube, for example, where anybody can buy few impressions, and people still have a perception that on television only very well-respected brands can go on, and it's really, really massive. On YouTube, you can see very scammy videos, and there is no much trust so much as on TV. I think this explains. And for me, when I think about when fashion is going to fully convert to online, I think with the current technologies we have, internet, mobile phones, and so on, it's really not possible. We really need to convey the full 100% aspirational experience, and this is only possible with virtual reality or augmented reality. So all the guys who work with those kind of technology, I think
we've been experimenting, and it's really interesting.
Revolutionize
the depth that you get, which it's.
Holograms.
I'm really excited to see what's about to happen.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Right
I think then this experience could be fully transferred to virtual world, and then, to all the boutique shops might happen the same what to airplane tickets kiosks happened. That's kind of my thought.
I like this move towards the future and sort of technologies that have been bubbling up over the past couple of months, couple of years, and how they'll impact the fashion world going forward. I guess we'd love to hear your thoughts about what are the 1 or 2 technologies that you think will be most impactful in the fashion world over the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow. Virtual reality and augmented reality. I think the guys in Magic Leap, what they're working is going to be really, really revolutionizing. Holograms, I don't know, everything what could bring really much richer experience rather than what you can have on your smartphone is really going to revolutionize fashion.
Yeah, I think there's a twofold to that. Obviously, my perspective is we've been making the industry efficient, so it's really good to look at the future. And VR is incredible. There's a lot of technologies that are out there that are engaging, but I think there's also a lot of work that needs to be done internally. If you look at, I don't know if any of you know a designer or just looked inside what's going on, all of that has to be updated as well to engage in that. So if you are looking at, if you're in the front row, you're using VR and you're looking at, a collection going down the runway, everything needs to be tagged. And, there's certain technologies where we're working on in R&D, which is image recognition. So we can instantly recognize a product, if it's a Gucci bag, instead of somebody tagging it, we know what it is. And if you combine that with VR, you're really, allowing, to combine the technology to give that seamless, which will benefit, both of your companies as well, Because for us, what we've been doing is helping, the launch to market, and all of it's like the meta tagging, the inventory. If all of that is in a package, and there's technologies like EDI, but I think that needs to be upgraded as well, and we give them, for the retailers, that really helps the industry.
I think the day when you would be able online to try fashion on yourself and see how it looks and how it feels, it's going to be a killer to the current old-fashioned models, definitely.
And I don't know if any of you use things like Snapchat. I use it sometimes. You can put ears and and we're just the infancy. Just imagine what is about to happen. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, if you can look like an old person very easily, I'm sure you could. I'm sure you can
dress on
also
Eddie.
put on dress pretty easily as well.
Thank you.
And Joel, I think you've also done a lot of work with Google's Instant Apps, which is a newer product from Google.
Trying to, but yeah, I mean, I was just going to comment quickly on what Eddie has said, because I think for a while there have been a number of companies that have said, trying to solve the problem of what the clothes look like on you, and they've done it in a number of different ways. So it's a virtual looking you, or they take pictures with robots that kind of extend to show you what you would be like if you were larger. And to date, it hasn't worked particularly well, but obviously it's something that we'd like for the future. So when that comes in, that would be absolutely incredible, because I think fit is one of the biggest issues in retail. The return rates are something like 25 to 30%. So if that could be fixed, I think that would go a long way to helping retailers, I guess, become profitable and be more successful. But there was one thing that I wanted to talk about, which is I like having a pet project of sorts. And the thing that we're interested in at the moment is Google announced that they're going to go to instant apps. So for what it means is you wouldn't have to download the whole app to get part of the experience. And for us, we've seen the biggest blocker to having a great mobile experience is essentially the App Store. So you'd have to go download the app, have the app, to be able to click on a link and have a good experience within it. So what Google is saying is they're going to try and move towards allowing you to download a small part of the app at any point if you click a link without going through the App Store, which means that for every brand and retailer, it means that they should be able to distribute a really, really good experience. So it has a huge amount of knock-on effects for companies like ours, but also brands and retailers that want to be really successful on mobile. But one of the other interesting upsides of it is that it should enable a much easier shift between multi-channel retailers, between offline and online. So it means that potentially when you're in a store, it's going to be easier to scan a product and buy it with Apple Pay or Android Pay, or just using your thumbprint, which isn't really that possible at the moment, or it isn't seamless. So this is going to be a big change, and it's really exciting because it will make people think differently about some of the experiences. And I think a lot of what people have promised over the last couple of years in terms of really good user journeys haven't been able to happen because of this kind of blockage in the App Store. So I think this will change quite a lot. So we're really excited for that.
Yeah, especially with different platforms as well, because you have that challenge. You've got Android, you've got Apple, and to have something that's seamless, it's very exciting.
Very interesting. So the four of us are much more involved on the technology side. We're not necessarily fashion influencers. But I'd love to discuss briefly the impact of online influencers on fashion over the past 10 years or so. If you guys have any thoughts on that subject.
Yeah, I think for us, what we've been doing is we're tracking almost 200 million influencers and how they interact with content. And I think this is really important in today's age. And that's, broad in different verticals. There's 80 million that have roughly 2,000 followers. So that's also key as well. So if you're a brand, and we talked earlier on, about Instagram and Twitter, it's really important to understand and engage with the right influencer, and how to reach the consumer. But actually using and understanding who they are. And we've seen a lot of that in, for example, fashion shows. There's a case study we just did recently for a very popular brand that just showed in New York. And based on analyzing the show from the beginning to the end, it was really surprising, the data that he saw based on what we delivered. Because a lot of that is still got, so I think it's a really interesting time with data, how data can be used to.
Yeah, I can add, influencers are huge and going to be even bigger ones, because people, in contrast to 50 years ago, they don't trust billboards and messages from the companies anymore. They trust friends, they trust people, they really want to trust someone they aspire and inspire them, and those are kind of the guys on Instagram or whatever influencers they are. And this is like, I see so much where the advertising budgets are moving forward. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
really associating themselves through people rather than from different technologies and different visuals and so on. And it's exactly. And if you look at this again, like young generation, Gen Z or like millennials, it's all about people, and that's why I truly believe that's where the market would go.
It's always the
even further.
first question is, have you tried influencer marketing? Like whenever you meet anyone that's in marketing, that's just like the first thing that comes up. Have you tried influencer marketing? And yeah, for brands, it can be incredibly successful. And like you say, it's just a really fast way to reach a large number of people. And you say it's trusting those people.
But I would like to just put a spin on that as well, because I've been doing this for decades, so there's still the traditional. And what's important is, some brands, it is worth still working with traditional. It really depends, but it's really getting the foresight. How does that, all come together? So
Yes. Speaking about like digital marketing campaigns, we have done one of the most successful where we found those women who have like millions of followers, and we asked them to look at our product and if they like, and they genuinely like them, and then they genuinely speak about, gave their personal opinion about what they think, what they feel, how is good is that, and that really, really worked well when when you play with honesty and with people who really likes, and then they spread the news really related to themselves personally. That's amazing.
People are starting to get wise when it doesn't feel authentic as well. I think that's one of the things that's starting to change a little bit. So if it is a good relationship, if they do like your product, it works well, but you can see sometimes when it goes really badly.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so who are the influencers who inspired your current wardrobe choices today? It looks like you've been inspired by maybe Steve Jobs.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
No idea.
Just lastly, would just love to hear, your personal favorite fashion startups that are not currently on this panel today.
Oh, I can start. I actually like really, there's two. There's a company called 19th Amendment and another one, Atelier. And what they are doing, they're actually connecting everything from manufacture, the fabrics, all the way to the consumer. So, these are really exciting. And it kind of, I would say, fits into the Zara model, but it's really interesting. But as in today, with big brands, it's, there's systems like SAP and, the very complex legacy systems. So it's really important that startups, we start thinking about this, because the industry really does need a lot of help in that side. It's incredible how much, but they're the two companies that
Interesting.
interesting to me.
I was going to say, I wouldn't really call it a startup, but one of my favorite companies is Warby Parker. I was just curious, has everyone in the audience heard of Warby Parker? We've got a hand up if you've heard of it. So not huge, so maybe it is a startup then. But it's an American company, and they essentially reinvented the kind of direct consumer model. So they started making glasses, and they were selling them online. So they're making really great designs, and they're selling them for about $100. And then they started opening stores in New York and LA. And so if you go to some of those cities, anyone that's less than 35, they seem to be wearing Warby Parker glasses. And what was incredibly clever is they made them so cheap that people would just go in and buy 2 or 3. So they ended up spending the same amount of money. They just felt like they were getting a much better deal. And now when you see people talking about businesses, they're always like, oh, it's the Warby Parker of this, or it's the Warby Parker of that. And if you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend checking it out.
And lastly, one sentence.
One sentence. Magic Leap. Those guys who are working with VR. I think they're gonna revolutionize fashion and
Just see them.
and many other things.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Joel, Eddie, Eustace. Thank you for coming from London, New York, and Lithuania.
Thank you.